Good afternoon. My name is Anne Grace Kelm, and today I will be giving a joint musical and speaking presentation for my university course, which has explored the topic of pain. My presentation is entitled Music's Witness to Pain: Mysterious, Sacred, and Redemptive. In order to explain briefly why I'm doing this project as a presentation instead of a paper, it is because I decided that since I'm talking about witness and music, I wanted to play music for you as part of this presentation so that I'm not only telling you about how music acts as a witness, but I'm inviting you to experience this in your own life as you watch and listen. Thus, as we begin, you are encouraged to bring your own experience, your own pain, your own life here, and let the words and music touch your heart and soul as well as your mind. Just as a brief introduction, in order to walk through the idea of music as a witness in pain, I will start by giving an image for the experience of pain and its implications. After this, I will introduce the concept of witness and what it entails. From here, we will explore witness in relation to music on 3 different levels of experience. First will be the idea of music as witness to pain on a personal, individual level. Second, we'll look at how music can be used as part of bearing witness to another's pain. And third, we'll describe how music embodies and participates in the redemptive potential of pain. In summary, these sections dive into how in our moments of deepest pain, music reminds and embodies the truths that I am not alone as an individual statement, and you are not alone as another, and we are not alone as a collective statement about humanity. And this because of the redeeming act of Jesus Christ on the cross, which is somehow mysteriously embodied most profoundly in music. Concluding each of these sections, I will be playing a piece of music which illustrates and relates to the discussion in a meaningful way. And while I am treating these 3 main sections as different subjects, you may notice a lot of overlap between them because of how each concept is intimately related to the others. So to begin our discussion of the topic of pain, I will use an image that we talked about in my pastoral care and counseling class. We explored the idea of pain and suffering as a kind of contraction. A person is hurt and begins to close themselves off from others in order to protect themselves from further pain, because it just doesn't seem possible that anyone else is going to be able to understand what they have gone through or are going through. And the person is afraid that they will just be hurt more. And because pain is an individual experience like this, it can often seem very isolating and somebody can feel very alone. Pain is also a very deep experience which encompasses the whole of the human person, body, mind, and spirit. Words alone, then, can only represent pain in a partial way, for they are concerned primarily with the mind. Thus, trying to explain or express pain using only words is going to feel and find itself incomplete, as it cannot reach deep enough in the human person and experience. This leads us to the idea, which Elaine Scarry, in her introduction to the book, The Body in Pain, describes as the language-destroying qualities of pain. Words simply fail in trying to express or communicate to another person the intensity of pain one is feeling. Moving now to the concept of witness or companionship, we have this idea of that when a person is experiencing deep pain, the presence, love, and relationship and continued support of another who walks with the person can be very powerful in the face of pain. A witness, then, is generally understood as a companion, a person who sees, loves, seeks to understand the person, and in a sense enters the pain of the suffering person in such a way that the person is not alone in their struggles and is able to begin to open up. Recall the image of contraction. With a witness, expression can begin to be explored, pain can start to be understood, and silence can be filled with comfort and presence instead of pain and isolation. This is where music comes in, filling the silence. Because music is a language, and unlike words on their own, music reaches and engages the whole human person, body, mind, and spirit. Because it operates on and touches a person on as deep a level as pain does, it is able to provide expression and communication for a person in pain in a way that words cannot. So to start in we're going to explore the idea of power of expression of music over words. And in order to do this, I'm going to play a piece for you called Sunrise in the Rockies by Calvin Jones. And ask you the question, which do you find expresses the essence of the experience of watching the sunrise over the mountains more? A flowery description with words, or this? Now that we have experienced the capacity of music for expression and for capturing an experience, we will move to discussing music's expressive quality in relation to pain, or music as witness. To illustrate the potential for a piece of music to carry or bear pain with an individual, I'll be drawing upon two pieces of music, one which I composed last year, and another by Rachmaninoff, which I played last year. Last year, starting in October, was a very difficult time for me. A friend of mine had died by suicide, and I was grieving, confused, and hurting. As time passed, it seemed that others had stopped talking about it, and I felt that everyone was expecting me to be fine and to have gotten over it. But I was still struggling really deeply. And part of this struggling for me came in the form of voices that I would hear constantly in my head, saying things that were trying to hurt me, discourage me, or pull me down, like a radio on constantly in the back of my mind. It sounds weird if you haven't experienced it, but they were very real. And one day, when these voices were particularly bad, I ran into the forest, crying out to God to make it stop. And while he did not take away their taunts right away, in my pain, I heard him clearly ask, "What would this sound like if it were a piece of music?" And the rest of my walk that day marked the beginning of my choral composition entitled Voices. Musically, it is dissonant, unresolved, minor, dark, repetitive. And as I worked on it over the next months, it bore witness to my pain, to my constant struggle, by giving me a way to express and communicate what was going on to myself and to others. I could tell them about a piece of music instead of about these voices, and it felt a bit easier that way. And as I imagined a choir singing this piece, I began to feel heard. As I shared it with my composition teacher in our lessons, I felt understood. I was not alone. Unfortunately, since choirs are not able to sing in person very much now, this piece has never actually been sung by a choir, and I'm not able to share it with you further today. So we are now going to look at another piece of music, which I will play for you. It is a piano piece by Sergei Rachmaninoff, his Moment Musical No. 4. A difficult piece to learn, the music consists of constant running 16th notes in the left hand for all 7 pages, while the right hand maintains a melody of longer held notes which anchor the composition. From the time I first listened to it, I was immediately drawn to this piece, and it has walked with me through many difficult periods of my life since. And so I feel a deep connection with it, and I'm often compelled to return to it when I'm facing some kind of pain. This year, I'm connecting this piece with the idea of witness and contemplating how the music somehow plays the role of witness for me, as it allows an expression of my struggles as the left hand gets into life and all its craziness and ups and downs, while the right hand reminds me of my anchor and how I am held together by God and not forgotten, that someone is always bearing witness to my struggles. In playing this piece, I'm also opening myself to witness them. I'm no longer holding all my pain in. I'm laying it out and opening myself to others as well so that they can bear witness to me through the music. And while this is vulnerable, it also brings release, as I remember that I'm not alone and can let go of trying to hold it all in. And so in a powerful way, I believe that learning, practicing, playing, and performing this piece has been and continues to be healing for me. The experience of performing or playing someone else's music can be very meaningful, and in some mysterious but perhaps also sacred way. You as the interpreter and performer are bearing witness to the composer as well, and to the events of their life, even if the composer is no longer alive, while simultaneously the composer is also, again mysteriously, but no less real, bearing witness to you and your life and your pain as you learn and play their music. What then am I bearing witness to in Sergei Rachmaninoff's life as I play this piece? Well, in studying Rachmaninoff, I found out that he was only a little older than me when he wrote this piece, 23. And apparently Rachmaninoff was in deep financial trouble. He was a young musician and struggling to survive. In this period of his life, he was under a lot of pressure financially and wrote this and a few other pieces very quickly in order to try and help pay for his basic needs. In a later interview, though, he outlined his compositional process in a truly insightful quote, and it's very profound. He says, "What I try to do when writing down my music is to make it say simply and directly that which is in my heart when I'm composing." End quote. In my playing, as well as you're listening to this piece, we are, in this mysterious, sacred way, bearing witness to Rachmaninoff and the struggle which was on his heart when he composed such an intense, demanding, and powerful piece of music. And perhaps It is this idea of mutual witness that made this piece so significant for me last year and even till now, because it reminds me that I'm not alone. Now that we have heard that, I have a question for you. Did you feel, as you were listening to me play that piece, that you were able to connect with it at all, bring any part of yourself, your own pain even, into relationship with that music? When I played this piece for another student last year, the week that COVID came and everything was shutting down, she said to me afterward, "That piece really describes this last week and everything that we've been experiencing." And I agreed. This brings us to the poignant truth that music can take on different meanings in different times and places with different people, and it can still be just as powerful, just in a new or different way. And so, music is able to be used as a way for us also to bear witness to others. For example, an analogy to understand how this is possible, we turn to the Psalms, where this concept is truly immortalized. Unless you think, wait, that is in the Bible, and we read the Psalms, not play them on instruments. Recall that the Psalms were originally sung as part of Old Testament worship in the synagogue, and would likely have been quite familiar for people in everyday prayer and singing as well. And even just the words as we have them today are still poetry, which is very much related to music, although that's another paper. Anyway, I'm making the connection because music functions in a very similar way to the Psalms. For the essential characteristic of the Psalms is that they are able to meet you where you are at and bring you somewhere else. For example, the lament Psalms start out in often a very dark place of struggle and pain, but then gradually move to praise. How do they accomplish that? Well, to keep the theme of this presentation, they remind you that you are not alone. And in fact, not only remind, but the Psalms embody the truth that you as a human being are not alone. For reading and especially praying a song brings us into relationship on multidimensional levels. On the one hand, it does this on a horizontal level, connecting us with others, as we realize that the writer of the psalm has also gone through difficult times and struggled deeply, and we can relate to the writer, as well as to the generations of people who have prayed these songs through the centuries. And like we have discussed in relation to music, the Psalms bear witness to our pain as they provide comfort and a connection point, which helps us to discover that we are not alone in our pain. On the other hand, Psalms also bring us into relationship on what we will consider a vertical level, as they connect us to God. To do this, the Psalms can either serve to lift us above whatever pain we are experiencing by helping us to see reality from another perspective, God's perspective of love and life for the world, which moves us to praise. Or the Psalms can allow us to enter more deeply into an experience of pain that we are going through in order to process it, work through it, and begin to be healed as we find God there with us. Praying a psalm while struggling with pain here becomes a sacred experience. Many contemporary Christian musicians and artists have taken this concept of psalmody and integrated it into their own music, so that their songs can have the same function for us as the Psalms, bringing us into relationship on the levels that we have described. So to summarize, in their music, we encounter both the mutual form of witness, where they are bearing witness to our pain, and we are also mysteriously bearing witness to theirs, and the reality of God's presence, the sacred vertical relationship, which much of this music is designed to draw us deeper into. Accordingly, I'm going to share some music and story of a contemporary Christian singer and songwriter, Laura Story, with her song Blessings. Many people know this song as it came out at the top of the charts when it was released, but fewer people know the story behind it. Blessings was written by Laura Story while she was going through a very difficult time in her life. She and her husband had just found out that he had a brain tumor, and a discovery that would change their lives as routines were abandoned, plans had to change, normality ceased, and pain became part of their daily routine. During this time, Laura Story asked a lot of questions. Why was this happening? Why were her prayers coming back unanswered? Why did they have to go through this? Pain, anger, bitterness, confusion, grief. It was almost overwhelming. Yet as she began to express these questions and feelings in song, she found herself able to hold on to various truths and promises which would carry her through this time. Then, in the sacred, mysterious act of relational witness in music, her song Blessings became a huge success because it gave people a space to express and process their own pain and struggle in a deep and meaningful way, while also finding consolation, comfort, and encouragement as they listened, knowing that they were not alone. And she, in their words of gratitude and affirmation, was also receiving their witness to her pain. All this through the simple but heartfelt psalm-like song, which I'm about to share here. hope and pray that as you were listening, you were able to experience the song speaking to you and letting you pour your own trials of this life here, while also gaining a sense of the levels of relationship that this kind of music can draw us into. For our final segment of this presentation, we will turn to the idea that the redemptive potential of pain is realized and embodied in music. We have already touched briefly on how music, because of its ability to provide witness and open us to relationship, can entirely transform our experience of pain, like it did for me when I wrote my composition Voices. But this is about more than making you feel better. This is redemption. What I'm not talking about here is that pain is something that buys our salvation and is necessary in some way as such. Redemption is a gift and grace. It is a place where pain is addressed, transformed, and healed. I'm hoping this brings you to the image of the cross of Jesus Christ. He did not die to obliterate pain, but to overcome it. Pain is very present on the cross, but so is paradise. Pain's unspeakability and isolation is not the end. Through the cross, barriers are broken, making witness possible in pain. Jesus first bore witness to our pain by taking it upon himself on the cross, and because he rose again and is alive, he continues to bear witness to us and our pain, while allowing us, as part of his body, to be part of this redeeming witness in the world. It is no coincidence that early believers who experienced a lot of pain and were often killed for their faith were called martyria, martyrs, witnesses, translated. For they were simultaneously bearing witness to Christ's sufferings by suffering with him, as well as witnessing to the world the reality and power of the gospel in the face of pain. While we do not often think of music in terms of martyrdom, I would like to suggest a connection here, since we have already forged such a deep relation between music and witness in a broader sense. For there's a lot of similarity in how one approaches music, especially performing, but also listening and experiencing it, and how one approaches martyrdom. Both require a laying aside of certain things, a death, if you will, for the sake of something believed to be greater, God and one's faith in him. I'm not intending to compare the sufferings of a martyr with a piano major, but I'm trying to make the connection of the inner attitude, discipline, and commitment that both willingly subscribe to. In approaching performance, I'm choosing to bring my life onto that stage or screen. You will not see everything about me, but there are many things that I will not be able to hide, that I'm choosing to let you see. In playing music, I'm offering the depths of my experience, everything that I have ever gone through, and letting that be part of my music. I'm opening myself to you and letting you bear witness to my pain through the music. And here in that mysterious way, I'm inviting you and to enter that place in yourself, affirming that you are not alone in your pain by letting you see mine. The power of this mystery lies in the fact that when we are open with ourselves, others, and God, he is able to come and bear witness to us and through us to each other. This is where music's healing and pain's redemption come together. When we are open to God, our pain can become part of Jesus Christ's redemptive work on the cross. This transforms our perspective on pain, even if we are still living with it, because we're able to find meaning in pain and begin to discover God using it in our lives for good, for the good of those, our own good, for the good of those around us, and for the good of the world, as Eilish reminded us earlier this semester. And music, in its depth and poignancy, is able to embody and participate in this redemptive act. For our final story and piece of music, we are fittingly then looking to Beethoven, one of the most influential and important composers in Western music history. If Bach is the Old Testament, then Beethoven is the New, as some people describe it. Yet in terms of the circumstances in which he wrote his music, Beethoven had anything but an easy life. And this is aptly reflected in the three main periods of his life and compositional work, from which viewpoint his story is conventionally told. During the first period, his early years, he was beginning to discover and establish his voice as a composer. Enough of a struggle to begin with. But then during his second period, the middle years, that brought him into a dark and turbulent time where he experienced the nightmare of all musicians coming true. He was going deaf. And he struggled with this intensely for years. But Beethoven does not remain in this dark period for good, which brings us to the final period of his life, which is often termed the heroic period, because it is where he comes out of his difficult struggles and emerges stronger in spite of, and perhaps even through them, as is reflected and embodied in his music. If he had chosen differently, we would not have Beethoven's Ninth Symphony and its famous Ode to Joy. We would have lost centuries of witness that piece has participated in all around the world. Like when it was performed in Berlin as a celebration of freedom after the dark and painful years of Soviet rule in Germany. We would also not have the piece that I've chosen to play for you today, the first movement of a piano sonata Beethoven composed during this same period, in which I feel he expresses an interplay of hope and pain, joy and sorrow, the constant and the unexpected. In essence, the unpredictable nature of human life in music. And here Beethoven calls us to remember that through all of our struggles, pain finds meaning, wounds are redeemed, and beauty is still a possibility. One thing you may notice about the ending there is that this movement doesn't have a very satisfying ending. You end on the home key in the tonic, the home chord, but it still feels like there's more to come. And just as in the sonata, there are 2 more movements of music left. In our lives, even after we have come to terms with our pain on some level, that is still not the end. There is more life to live. And while we may not be able to escape pain in the future, we can enter it with the knowledge which we have worked out by past experience. As the music we have experienced today witnesses to and embodies, our pain can become redemptive as it brings us into a relationship with ourselves, with others, and with God. I am not alone. You are not alone. We are not alone. Thank you.